Welcome back to the Broken Masterpiece. Today we get to do a simple side table flip. My name's Kristen and I love all things furniture refinishing, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've got so much to show you. For all of my furniture flips, you guys know we start with cleaning off your piece. Now this was a piece that belonged to a client of mine, and my little helper, Mr. Lincoln, helped me with some TSP spray and a scrubber. Once the piece is clean, I gave it over to my eldest son, my Jackson, and he used a foam pad with my Surf Prep sander and sanded everything down just to get any damage off, any uneven surfaces, and this foam pad works really great to go around all the curves. The primer that we're going to use is a bonding primer, so I didn't even get into every crack and crevice with this sander. I didn't have to hand sand, I just gave it an all-over buff sand. I primed this piece along with some other pieces that I was working on with Bin Zinsser shellac. You're not really supposed to put it through a spray gun, but I've never had issues. I was also outside doing it and wearing a PPE respirator, so make sure that you are safe. When shellac dries, it just has a little bit of a grittiness to it, so I go through with a foam pad. I make sure that I touch every surface, make sure that everything is smooth so that I can begin painting. I love car washing microfiber rags. I use these especially when going around detailed surfaces and curved surfaces. It gets off all the dust from the shellac. So now your piece has been cleaned, sanded, and primed, and sanded again. Now you are ready for paint. Now you can hand paint stuff like this, but this piece has so many details. I am using my Wagner Flexio Fine Finish. This is the detail finisher gun. It attaches to the Wagner Flexio 5000 sprayer, and it sprays so smooth. I do water this down with distilled water just a little bit. This is Dixie Belle's Saltwater White. Ever since my back surgery, I have everything on rollers, everything up on surfaces so that I can move it around and I'm not doing too much lifting. Since the primer was white, I really didn't have to do many coats of the paint. I did 2 coats of the Saltwater by Dixie Belle, and then I went back through, and you can't really see a difference, but I did a clear coat of polyacrylic by Minwax in satin, and I did about 3 thin coats of that. When you are spraying versus brushing, you're going to be doing more coats with a sprayer because you're doing thinner coats. When you're brushing, your paint's going to be a little bit thicker, so you might only need 1 or 2 coats. Once everything has properly dried, you want to give it some good dry time. Then you can begin your wax and all your fine finishing details. Now the reason that you don't wax right over the paint is because then it really bonds to the surface and starts dyeing the paint a little bit. And so you want your surface fully sealed in because then your wax can go on a lot smoother. I'm using Annie Sloan's dark wax because I have extra of it. I love Dixie Belle's dark wax. I love Jolie's dark wax. Like really, you cannot go wrong. This is in a dark brown. So I'm just using a little artist brush. This one ended up being too big, so I swapped it out for a smaller one. And going through every crack and crevice, I'm taking this dark wax and I'm putting it inside each of the grooves to give this piece more of a 3D outline look. The best part about wax is that you can take mineral spirits and clean it right off if you mess up or you put it on an area where you didn't want any wax at all. You can also get your kids involved. Waxing is really forgivable, and so it's not like a glaze where it will start to stain. It is something that can be easily wiped off with mineral spirits. Now, for this piece, because there wasn't anywhere that we could get it that we didn't want it, we really wanted a darker look. We wanted it in every crack and crevice, and so as we go through, I follow it up with a steel wool. This is steel wool that you can get in the description below. It's by Homax, but you can get any kind. This is a 00. 00 is soft, almost like a buffing pad. So as I'm going through with my steel wool, it's also giving it a bit of a sheen, and then it's wiping it off any area that I really don't want it. And then I'm getting into the grooves to soften up the look that the paintbrush laid the wax on. It's a little bit rough looking. And so this gives it a softer look and gets it off the surfaces that I don't want it sitting on. And if you rub off too much, you can just reapply it back on. These are the type of projects where I love getting my kids involved, especially if they want to help. I never make my kids help, but I do pay them for the work that they do. And especially on activities like this where you really can't mess it up, it's so perfect to get them hands-on, give them confidence, and let their artistic abilities take off. Steel wool usually comes in rolls, and so it's really important when you start using it that you unroll it just slightly so that you can make sure that that metal doesn't bend too far into itself and get stuck and you be unable to roll. It's really good when you're working with a softer surface or a good surface area that you use the cleanest side of the pad. So I do get my nails in there when I'm going into the grooves, and that really will buff it out. But if I'm working with a larger surface, I'm going to go with the cleanest area. So I keep unrolling it and making sure that I'm working with clean steel wool instead of already have wax on it steel wool. This is just a closer up view. It helps soften up the edges. And so we put it on pretty dark in some areas, especially the girls that I had working with me. And so I go through and I just soften up the edges and I make it just look a little less uniform. After you have finished your waxed look, you can go through with a champagne or gold or really any kind of gilding. And this is like a wax as well. You can wipe it off with mineral spirits, but I go through with my fingertip and I just rub it right on the surfaces that I want the sunlight to catch and just make sparkle. This client already had her entire bedroom set done by me, and we added a bit of this on the dark gray. Well, no, it wasn't a dark gray. It was the French linen, so it's that gray by Annie Sloan. And we added this over the top on just the edges, and it made everything pop. And so she wanted this to have a similar look with the dark wax and then the gold gilding on top. Once you're done with the waxing and any gold gilding that you want, you just take a microfiber rag and wipe everything off in a more buffing style. It gives it that added sheen, and it also makes sure that any little dust from the steel wool gets removed. And that's it, you're done. I put it out in the sunlight to see how that sparkle shines, and then I sent it back home to the client and she was so excited. We also updated the legs of these beautiful chairs to match, and she just is thrilled with the new look in her space. Thank you so much for supporting my furniture flipping channel. Make sure you click subscribe and like. All of that stuff, all that interaction helps me grow my business, and I'll be back soon with another tutorial.